Hi everyone, welcome back to the Be Kind, Be Happy podcast. For episode 14, Leigh and I want to talk about how to up our game to the next level, or how to reset from having a bad week and wanting to reset the routine so that we can start again on a positive note. So hope you like this episode on resetting or upping the level. Hope you like it. Okay, so as always, let's begin with 3 deep breaths together so that we can synchronize our minds and enter a relaxed, happy state. So back straight, eyes closed, shoulders rolled back. Taking the first deep breath together. And then breathing out entirely. Second breath in. Second breath out, exhale entirely. Third breath in. Third breath out, relaxing the mind and body. And when you're ready, open the eyes. Okay. Let's begin this podcast on resetting or upping the level. So if we get straight into it, we've decided that we are going to break up this podcast into 3 aspects. So the first would be to redefine our intention. The second will be to understand how bad we want it. The third is going to be what are we willing to do for it. So what are the things that we are going to do for it? And also, what are the things that we are willing to give up for it, sacrifice to achieve our goals? So Leigh, what are your thoughts on this podcast today in terms of resetting and increasing our game to the next level? How have you broken it down to the WHW?
So I take it same as you, beautifully said. But the one thing that I emphasize is that you have to visualize the whole picture, because you can't understand what you are willing to give up are willing to do unless you understand what's in your way. And so you won't know how bad you want it until you see what you want and what does it mean for you. So once you see the whole picture, then you can align yourself with your why.
So Leigh, what's your understanding of the first aspect, which is redefining your intentions in terms of the why? So why do you want this goal in the first place?
Yeah, so that's that. I mean, that is the most important thing, right?
Yeah.
You have to have a clear intention, and that has to be fully developed. As I was saying before, you might think that you have a why, and it might be in line with what you're doing, but it might not be strong enough, and you might find that out as well. So it's important to evaluate a bunch of different things, right? So what is your why, right? Why do you want that why?
Yeah.
And why is it important to you? You know?
Yeah.
Visualize, right? Where will it take you? You know? So if my why right now is like completing teacher's college, like what does that mean for me? I guess it means 2 years of grinding and making some sacrifices, then I'll be a certified teacher, and it opens some doors for me. I could go and teach in England or in Canada, or in international school abroad. There's a lot of opportunities that will open up. So if that's my why, it's not good enough, right?
Yeah.
What is my why? I want to improve people's lives, that's my why. I want to make the world better. That's my why. I want to make people happy. That's my why. I've been in school and I've been unhappy and I've had poor teachers, and I want to change the narrative, right? Break the mold. And so that's my why. Oh my God, when I change that why in my mind, it's like, oh yeah, that's why I'm here in the first place. Okay, so that now I realize that's so much better, right?
Yeah.
And then I can start going into number 2, which is how bad do I want that, right?
Yeah.
But it all comes back to really sitting and visualizing your why, and maybe realizing that your why is just not good enough, and that's okay. because you can always change it. There's so much freedom in that, right?
Yeah.
You know?
I think, Leigh, you're so right in saying that there's so much freedom in being able to define your own why, because it's entirely up to you. And at the end of the day, your why will serve as your motivation, right? When we get tired, lazy, or lethargic, or unmotivated, our why should be so strong. Just understanding why we are doing this in the first place should be enough force that pushes us forward when there's no power within. So the why is so important for me as well, to understand why am I doing all this in the first place. Because life is never easy, right? Life is, sometimes it's tiring, sometimes it's very hard, sometimes it's stressful. But if we know very deep down why we are doing it in the first place, it makes everything worthwhile. It makes everything make sense, right? And so after we understand the why, then we can go to the next level, which is what you were saying is how. So the first one is why, the second one is how. And Leigh, can you lead us through the how?
So after visualizing your why and putting some conscious thought into it and reevaluating it, refining it, then you can start considering how bad you want it. So you see yourself in 5 years. We're talking about a long-term goal in particular here. And so then you see 5 years down the road, right? Will it make you happy? Are you in a position that's in line with your why, right? Like, are you making people happy? Are you making potentially the world better? Like, for me, this is my why. Well, if that's what it will lead to, then it kind of it fuels itself. How bad do I want that? I want that with everything inside of me. Why would I want anything else, you know? Yeah. That is what I want. So if that's how bad that I want it, then it jumps right into the next step that we define. And it's, what are you willing to do? Or what are you willing to give up? And sometimes it's about seeing everything for what it is and then realizing, what do I need to remove? So it's not necessarily like, what do I have to do? It's just, what do I have to stop doing? Like, what do I have to eliminate from my maybe distractions or obstacles? And what obstacles do I have to keep there? You know, like, what things can I not eliminate? And do I just have to figure out solutions for? And maybe it means working a little bit harder, working less hard other times. If you really grasp it, it's like, it's really beautiful, and it all comes to the first visualization. And that's what I kind of realized after last week, was like, man, I lost my real intention. I was playing with phony intentions. I didn't have my full-on intention, and once it came back to me, then it became a lot more clear. Oh my God, I have so much power in this, and I can make it happen, because that's what I need to make happen. That's my why.
Dude, Leigh, that was excellent. And I think I want to talk more about understanding how bad you want it, and why the second part is so important. Because we all want so many things. So many things will satisfy the first criteria. We want money, we want to be rich, we want to be healthy, we want to have a good body, we want to have an abundance of everything. We want to be famous, we want to be like skilled at what we do. The things that we want is so great. But then if we go to the second criteria, which is how bad do you want it, sometimes not everything that passes the first criteria will pass the second criteria. For example, if someone says, I want a golden watch, a gold watch, how bad do you want it? Then we have to start visualizing what happens in your life 5 years from now if you achieve what you want. If it's something that's not that substantial, maybe it's not worth pursuing, because there are so many other things that we want that can impact our lives on a more meaningful way. And if it passes the second criteria, how bad do you want this? Maybe that will help us understand the motivation more. And so if what we want doesn't satisfy that, then maybe it's time that we bring it back to the first step and then redefine what we want, redefine our intentions, so that it passes the first and second criteria, and only then do we start planning around it in the third criteria.
It's an interesting thing, because I wrote down while you were talking, I wrote down like mental checkpoints, right? So the 1, 2, 3 WHW they're just mental checkpoints, right?
Yeah.
And you should be constantly reevaluating them as you go through as you progress, right?
Yeah.
So like, you might realize, how bad do you want it? In this moment, I want it more than anything. Yeah. So you're going to progress. But maybe you hit a point where you're feeling stagnant. And then you have to reevaluate, and you have to realize, like, maybe you can kind of think like, am I feeling this way because my why is not so strong? Am I feeling this way from external factors? And then that jumps into 3. Well, then what do I need to do here to resolve this so that then I can get back to my why? And so it's an interesting thing, but I wrote it down as like, you have stage 1, and then you have an arrow that goes, and it's an arrow, double-sided arrow, 1, 2, 3. And so you can jump to 2, jump to 3, you're going. Now you come back to 2 when you're slowing down, and you go back to 1, then you go back to 3, and you're going again. And so it's not fixed, right?
Yeah.
It's not fixed. And that's, again, there's more freedom in that. You can have a goal to climb a mountain, and that's a good example, right? But that's fixed, you know?
Yeah.
You start at the bottom and you have to get to the top. But life is not just one mountain, you know? It's like many peaks and valleys. And so that's why you have to be constantly reevaluating and refining your why, and thinking about how bad do you want that why. And then thinking about the things that are in your way, right? And then thinking about the things that you need to do to get around those things. Yeah. And sometimes it's elimination of those things. Sometimes it's jumping over them. Sometimes it's going under them. Sometimes it's going around them. And that's the beauty of it all, because it's all can be accomplished. Like everything can be accomplished. I think it's so liberating, you know?
Yeah. Dude, Leigh, like, I think, Leigh, the model that you introduced right now in terms of having a double-sided arrow is so crucial, because it does give us the freedom to go back to redefine our intention, or we can go back to redefine how badly I want it in the first place. And the freedom is so important because we are always changing. So the model that we have should be dynamic as opposed to a fixed one. So that we can always be thinking, as I change, how does that affect my intention? How does that affect my goals? And how does it affect my plan?
Yes.
Because we are always changing, and this model forces us to remain mindful of ourselves, remain mindful of our intentions and of our traits, of our character, of who we are, so that when we are changing, we can always change the way we go about achieving our goals and what goals we have in the first place. That's really
because as you said, we're always changing, right? Then your perspective's always changing. So that's why the why is so crucial, because you can have those other almost like side quests, you know, like getting the watch or the car, whatever, side quest. So that's okay, you know, but if you have the underlying why, like if you're an entrepreneur, like I'm going to build a successful business, and I'm going to hire, you know, I'm going to have a ton of employees, and it's going to be like a living, breathing organism that's succeeding, then you're going to have the watch anyways. Maybe when you hit a milestone, you buy yourself this watch or whatever, and that's okay, right? But that's not your why. You know, you don't make a business to buy a watch, you know, or you don't get a job to buy a watch, right? So Byron, I was hoping you could give us some wisdom on the third part, the what.
Yeah, I think this is the main part, right? First, we have to understand why we want something, how badly we want it. And then, as you said, talk about the visualization of the person that we want to become. What type of person is someone that achieves the goals that we set out to achieve? And then we have to start being that person, right? And so how we be that person is the third part, which is what are the things that we have to do, and also what are the things that we have to sacrifice and give up. The things we have to do is about creating a good routine, creating positive habits that a person that achieves the goals that we want to achieve does. So we want to start behaving like a person that achieves the goals that we want to achieve. But also we want to be able to manage our distractions and manage our temptations. Those are the things that take away from our momentum, that derails us. So those are both equally important. The first one is understanding what we have to do, and the second one is understanding what we must sacrifice. So for me, this is the perfect timing for this podcast, because next week is when I want to start implementing my reset, or implementing the next level of the game. And so in my mind, my plan is that I have to start waking up early every morning. I have to start doing my morning routine, which is going for a jog, doing some yoga and some meditation in the morning, which means that the night before I must sleep early. But also it means that throughout the day I have to maintain my level of excellence, which means I have to minimize distractions and temptations. And the best way to do that is to make it as hard as possible to get the temptations and the distractions. The second one is what I'm consciously trying to achieve here is to improve my willpower, which I think is very, very poor. So there are things that I want to do, and I will not give myself excuses to achieve these things. And I've heard from many places that when you tell your mind that you're not going anywhere, your mind is forced to expand. And that's the expansion that I want to experience, because in the past, I'm too gentle on myself so that I give myself too much excuses or leeway, whereas now I want to increase my willpower. I want to up my game. And I think to improve my willpower, I have to stop giving myself excuses, stop giving myself exit points. And when I say something, I'm going to have to do it regardless of how difficult it is to do it. I have to do it just to build the confidence, build the willpower, build the momentum. So that's what I'm going to start doing from tomorrow.
I wanted to take it back to what you said regarding stage 3 of the what. You said, think about what it looks like for a person who achieves it, right? So you're almost modeling other people potentially, right?
Definitely. For example, if I want to be a high level person, someone that achieves a lot, that accomplishes a lot, that is very disciplined and very high energy, this person doesn't laze around. This person doesn't eat whatever he wants. This person doesn't succumb to his temptations, you know. He's a very focused person with very high, strong willpower. And that's the person that I have to emulate. That's the person that I have to become. So if I want to be a high level person, I have to start acting like one. I have to start living a life of someone that has the habits like that.
So to take your point and turn it in a different way, I was thinking, visualize yourself being that person before you are acting as that person. So you can use examples of other people, but don't visualize someone else. Visualize yourself. You know, what does it look like if you're the person who achieves it? What does it look like if you're the high level person doing those things? So once you've already visualized yourself doing those things, I think it becomes a little bit easier to then do those things. And so that's the point that I'm getting into is the pure visualization of it, seeing yourself achieving those things, seeing yourself disciplined, seeing yourself running for an hour before you run for an hour, and then running for an hour physically doing it. And so that's like the level that I'm thinking, because I think once you've visualized it, it becomes a little bit easier.
Definitely. And I really strongly believe as well that if you start to visualize yourself already having achieved everything, then it just makes it easier, because it makes it more realistic and it makes it more tangible, because you can feel what it's like to achieve those already. You can start feeling and thinking about and understanding what it's like to live the life of a high achiever, or to live a life of the person that you want to become. So by contemplating and visualizing yourself already having achieved those goals, it makes it easier to achieve them now.
Because going back to that mountain analogy, right? Like you look up on the hill and you see the rock up ahead and you're like, I got to get to that rock, and then I take a breather. You see it, you literally see the point you have to get to, and then you go and get to that point, and then you take your breather. So that's like, if you can try and apply that to like real life goals and real life things, which I'm trying to do right now, I think that's going to be crucial.
So Leigh, I actually wanted to ask about your own personal experience, and what are some habits that you think will help take you to the next level? And what are some temptations you think is worth sacrificing to help you remain more focused and in line with your goals and your path?
So I've been trying to visualize and reevaluate my why all week since we did the last podcast. The last podcast really helped me get over the little bit of feeling of overwhelming. And then now I'm trying to gear back, like go into a high gear and go forwards. And so I've been thinking about what am I willing to do, right? And I realized that there's other things that you have to be willing to do to reach that end goal. So for me, I've been trying to be a lot more mindful of my diet, and I've been going to the gym all week, really, really pushing myself. I think it's helped. Like, it's cleared my mind. I feel better. I feel worked, and I feel like I can get there. And so one of the things that I'm doing is a lot more exercise. Even though you would think like, okay, I'm doing exercise. My why is not I want to be fit. but being fit and being healthy plays into my why. It's one of the things I have to be willing to do in order to achieve my why over a lifetime. And so that's something I'm gearing all my energy into in this moment. Like, it's really helped short term. It's already kind of helped. I feel better. I have to keep implementing that because I think it all comes together, like a disciplined body and then a disciplined mind, and then following through to my why, like trying to make the world better. I have to make myself better, and I have to make myself happy first. And I'm trying to do that, and I've taken quantum leaps in the last little bit. I'm really trying to limit the obstacles that are not serving me at all, and I'm trying to implement new things that are serving me, like serving my body, and that comes from pushing myself, stuff like that. Just to wrap things up, you have to have a strong enough why, and because it's your building block, right? And only you will know if it's strong enough, right? And so that's why you have to visualize the whole package. Like, take the time, because if you're not willing to take the time to truly evaluate your why and go through those stages before you put your life into it, then it's probably not strong enough, right? And so finding that true strong why is what will fuel you over the bad days, over the days without motivation, the tired days. And that's probably one of the most important things. So you have to go through the whole package.
And so this podcast has been so important for Leigh and myself in terms of understanding deeper our motivations and our inspirations, our why, but also understanding deeper what are the things that we should be doing more of, and what are the distractions and temptations we should sacrifice. We really hope that you can take value from this podcast and maybe even start next week in terms of resetting, or in terms of taking your game to the next level, so that we can all do this together, live at a higher mental state, a higher emotional state, higher physical state, so that we can live a more happy life. Hope you've enjoyed this episode, and as always, we'd love to hear your questions and comments. And otherwise, we'll see you again next week. Thanks everyone. Bye bye.